You get $25 a day. That's it. That's the whole reason you signed up. Not because you wanted to hurt anyone. Not because you thought you were capable of it. You needed the money, and a newspaper ad promised 2 weeks of easy pay for a simple psychology study. 6 days later, you're not the same person who signed that ad. In August 1971, a psychologist named Philip Zimbardo built a fake prison in the basement of Stanford University's psychology building. Real steel bars on the cell doors. A dark closet repurposed as a solitary confinement cell. He picked 24 ordinary college students, screened them extensively for good mental health, then he split them by a single coin flip. Half became guards. Half became prisoners. Nobody was chosen because of who they already were. On paper, this should have produced 12 guards and 12 prisoners who were, statistically, almost identical to each other. Here's the part people forget when they tell this story. Zimbardo didn't just watch from behind a mirror. He appointed himself prison superintendent. He wasn't observing from a safe distance, taking careful notes like a scientist is supposed to. He was inside the system he built, making real decisions as it collapsed around him, and that single detail changes everything about what happened next. A superintendent isn't neutral. A superintendent has a stake in the prison running smoothly. The guards were given khaki uniforms, mirrored sunglasses so prisoners could never see their eyes, and wooden batons. No training, no rules on how to behave, beyond one loose instruction. Maintain order. Nothing about what that actually meant in practice, and nothing about what it didn't allow. Think about that for a second. Have you ever been handed a role with real authority, and zero guidance on how to use it? A new manager position, a coach's whistle, even just being left in charge of your younger siblings for a weekend. What did you actually do with that kind of blank check when nobody was standing over your shoulder telling you the boundaries? By day 2, the prisoners staged a small rebellion, barricading themselves in their cells using their beds. The guards, caught off guard and humiliated, responded with force that escalated far past anything Zimbardo had anticipated. From that point on, punishment became creative. Push-ups. Being forced to clean toilets with bare hands. By day 3, prisoners were being stripped, and guards were putting bags over their heads to disorient them completely. This wasn't planned. Nobody handed guards a manual for degradation. They invented it themselves, in real time, testing the limits because nothing was stopping them from testing. There was one guard in particular. The prisoners nicknamed him John Wayne, after his exaggerated tough guy accent, which he adopted almost immediately after putting on the uniform. He wasn't the biggest guard, and he wasn't the loudest at the very start. By most accounts, he'd been a fairly quiet, unremarkable psychology student before the study began. The kind of person nobody would have predicted this from. But somewhere in those 6 days, he became the guard every prisoner feared most. He invented degrading routines nobody asked him to invent. He escalated every single day, testing exactly how far he could go before somebody, anybody, finally stopped him. Nobody stopped him. Here's what should genuinely unsettle you. Years later, researchers went back and asked why him, specifically, out of all 12 guards. And the honest answer wasn't that he'd been secretly cruel all along, hiding it behind a mild personality. It was that he understood, faster than the others, that no one was actually watching closely enough to intervene. He wasn't following orders from above. There were no orders. He was testing a boundary that, as it turned out, simply didn't exist. On day 5, a Catholic priest who'd actually served as a real prison chaplain in his career was brought in to evaluate the study from the outside. He sat down and interviewed the prisoners one by one, the way he would with real inmates. And here's the detail that gets left out of almost every retelling of this story. When he asked one prisoner, prisoner number 806012, a simple question, "What's your name?" the young man answered with his prisoner number instead of his own name. Read that again. This was a college student. A real name, a real education, an entire life waiting for him outside that basement. And after only 5 days, his own number came out of his mouth before his name did, automatically, without him even seeming to notice he'd done it. By day 6, prisoners were having full breakdowns. One had to be removed early after an intense, uncontrollable episode of crying and disorganized thinking, unable to even explain what was happening to him. And the person who finally shut the entire study down wasn't Zimbardo himself. It was his girlfriend at the time, a young psychologist named Christina Maslach, who came to visit the basement, watched guards marching a line of hooded prisoners to the bathroom in silence, and told him flatly that what he'd built was no longer a study. It was abuse, plain and simple, and he needed to end it immediately, that same day. He listened to her. Not to his own research team, several of whom had watched the same footage without raising the alarm. Not to any built-in safeguard the study was supposed to have. One outside person, walking in fresh with no stake in the experiment's success, was what it took to see clearly what everyone already inside had slowly stopped being able to see at all. That's the part of this story that actually matters most, and it's the part almost nobody focuses on when they retell it. It's not really about whether people are secretly evil underneath a normal exterior. It's about how fast ordinary people adapt to a system that hands them real power with zero accountability attached to it. John Wayne wasn't a monster hiding inside a quiet psychology student. He was an ordinary person who simply realized, faster than everyone else trapped in that basement, that the usual rules had quietly stopped applying to anyone. So here's the honest question underneath all of it. If you were handed a uniform, a title, and total authority over other people, with nobody watching closely, and no real consequences attached to how you used it, are you completely certain you know what you'd become? Not who you think you are on your best day. Who you'd actually become, 6 days in. The experiment was supposed to run 2 full weeks. It was shut down after just 6 days, because the system it created had stopped needing anyone's permission to keep going on its own. Does that change how you think about power, or about yourself? Tell me in the comments. And if this made you question what you'd actually do in that basement, subscribe. We're just getting started.